Let's get back to our big debate this hour and ask whether we should reintroduce mandatory COVID measures. Now, John's just given his view. Abi, your thoughts?
Absolutely not. 100% no. What we're experiencing now is global psychosis for one coronavirus. I think it's very coincidental.
Hang on, sorry, did you just say global psychosis?
Yes, global psychosis. I don't use that phrase lightly. I think it's... Hang on, let me, because...
You don't use it accurately.
John's had it, yes, I do. Let me have my say. I think it's incredibly convenient and actually a bit coincidental that we're coming up to Christmas and now there's another variant named after, it sounds like a road that goes to Birmingham, the B1596 or whatever it is. And actually, there was a lot of discussion last week on how low the deaths were in Africa. In most of the countries, the vaccine uptake is very low. The deaths are very low. So what's happening is, because the end game is to get the whole world to have a vaccine, so that then you're on the system, the social credit, you're on the financial system, you're on also your health passport, your travel passport. That is the end game. That's why they're doing it for Africa. But actually, Africa's done very well.
Well, do you know, there's a couple of reasons why. I've just got a caveat why Africa's done quite well. First of all, coronavirus is, COVID-19 is something that really affects older people quite substantially. In Africa, the majority of the population are actually very young. Yes. That's the first thing. Sorry, the second thing here is that they have actually identified a gene, a COVID gene, which means, so where there's an issue with the lungs, where your body can't produce the right amount of antibodies, this gene, if you have this gene, it prevents your body from actually doing that. So they found that actually Africans, so black Africans, are the least likely to possess this gene. And they did a little study, and only 2% of Africans have this gene, whereas 15% of Caucasians have the gene, and actually East Asians have this gene over 60%, which is why the numbers were different. And the other side of it is obviously Africa is a hot area, so people are not so compressed in the same place. So all the things, one of the things, because it's everybody's outside, that social distancing doesn't necessarily mean to...
But also, can I just also say, I've got a Twitter follower in Botswana who said the reason she said it's really odd because they don't hear about any of this because they switch off their television and they switch off the mainstream media, so that the continuous terror that's being peddled in this country as well by people like Jeremy Vine or the Good Morning, Good Morning Britain, is absurd. That's why, if we switched all the television sets off, apart from GB News, there wouldn't be a coronavirus.
No, but you could say that, but there is. But no, hang on. Sorry, you could say that, but I've got to caveat that with there is, and actually it's a deadly disease.
It is.
And we mustn't forget that, because I think it's easy to say that and trivialise.
The average age of death is 82. It's over the average age of normal death.
We're not just focusing on death, though, because there are people who end up with pretty life-limiting and life-changing
conditions. So how come only Boris Johnson, out of all the MPs, only Boris Johnson went into hospital?
This is excuse me, this is conspiracy central. This is madness that she is saying these things. Absolute madness. Can we go back? Let's go back to the question. You had your say. Let's go back to the question about Africa, as we all know. Is a continent, not a country. So there's vast differences within Africa.
The countries within Africa, I said.
So in South Africa, for example, in certain areas, there is massive COVID infection. Soweto, for example, is one of the examples they put forward. I think you make a really good point about the gene, etc., etc. But to somehow, Abi, to come on to national radio, TV, and say what you... Just say what you've just said. You think it's some great big conspiracy. I mean, it's crazy.
I'm not saying it's conspiracy. I'm saying it's the truth.
What are you saying?
What is the truth?
I'm saying that the reason this is happening is because people want everyone to be vaccinated, regardless. Look what's happening in Austria. Yeah, they're forcing injections on people from February.
Well, they're not forcing.
Yes, they are.
No, they're
mandatory.
Not.
Yes, from February. Okay. I do not want to live in a world where I see you as a virus and you as a virus, because that is not morally and ethically correct.
Well, no, I hear that, but the reality...
Absolutely not.
Let's look at the reality, though. There is a virus out there. There are many people...
There are many viruses. Oh, my God. There are so many viruses.
Let me finish, thank you. There are many people who have suffered quite severely because of it, and it is a virus that we have managed to slightly get under control because of the vaccination program. Yeah. So that is one of the main reasons why. And also, people have been infected with the virus, and the virus, now we have some underlying protection, and those who don't have the protection or couldn't get the protection vaccination have also got the protection. That's why the numbers are low in this country specifically, and very clear.
You have to understand, they want everyone to be vaccinated. But that's the end game.
Well, listen,
even me, I've got antibodies up to here. I don't need it.
Even if that was the end game and everyone was vaccinated, it would hopefully mean that there'd be fewer deaths, and that's the bottom line of it, isn't it? I don't mind if Big Pharma makes some money out of this, as long as I'm safe when that virus.
I don't understand how this conspiracy happens as well. How you think this is being put into place? That you think that the governments of the world have united overnight and said, "Oh, this is Botswana one. We haven't used B. Let's use that," and that somehow they're imposing this on us.
In the same way, in the same way that the global warming situation
I can never finish.
was not. Now, hang a minute. You said all governments joining together, like the global warming thing. All the governments agree. Do you not find that slightly strange?
Oh, we're now on to global warming.
Yes, because it's all part of the same. No, it's all part. You've just said. You contradicted yourself.
Abby,
you contradicted yourself.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I think you'll find you're doing that, Abby.
You said all
you're coming out with
mad. Agree.
You're coming out
on one
with
thing.
Mad conspiracy theories.
It's not mad conspiracy.
There's a new variant, and what I said was very balanced and reasonable.
So when does it end, John?
Are you going to allow anyone to finish?
When does it end?
Are you going to allow?
When does it end?
It ends now. We'll move on. Because today I've been asking you the question with regard to mandatory COVID measures, whether they should come back into place, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, after the break, how 3D print